On the motorway heading towards Munich, an almost 90-ton crane still has another 750 kilometers to Bauma. At the trade fair site in the north, a new footbridge is urgently needed to cope with the crush of 25,000 visitors a day. A 40-meter bridge floating in the air. Hey, that's Bauma. At the trade fair open-air site, the assembly of a 5-meter-high log handler requires much more room than planned. It's too tight. We need a solution, a space. Time is of the essence at Bauma. Day and night. Everywhere people are sawing, hammering and paving. Preparations have been in full swing on the Munich open-air area for months, because the world's largest trade fair is coming up, Bauma. Just for Bauma, the technical exhibitor service has moved out of the office onto the open-air area. With the assembly of stalls and construction equipment, Christian Lepp and his team are responsible for an exhibition area of around 414,000 square meters. As supervisor, he is in charge of Bauma for the first time this year. We're responsible for event security. In other words, we get plans of the entire stands. The exhibitors plan together with the trade fair constructors, have to check them so that we can simply guarantee safety for our visitors and exhibitors. Christian Lepp is confronted with new requiremements and questions every day. No, of course we'll sort it out. Okay, do you have a moment? All right, wonderful. See you.
Ciao.
The company Liebherr just called me. They're getting another large exhibit which will be placed on the road the day before runtime. The problem is, the entrances to the trade fair site are already being erected and may be too low for the large exhibit, so a suitable area must be found to assemble it. Bridge construction work on the A94 is also progressing. On the most frequented weekend, around 600 buses are expected at Bauma. The visitors must be safely directed to the trade fair. A second bridge is required to relieve the congestion. 7 workers work 2 days just to assemble the pillars. With the help of a crane, the first of 3 bridge parts can be lifted onto them at the edge of the motorway. Meanwhile, Christian Lepp heads off to the Liebherr company at the open-air area. Here he meets the assembly manager, Werner Haas, to discuss the questions concerning the upcoming assembly of the log handler.
Servus.
Hi.
Hallo.
Ah, hi. Hello, Werner. Hi, Christian.
Servus.
You wanted to know about the log handler for the exhibit. I think we need a space there because I think we have problems with the size of the machine with the assembly. I've brought the plans of the portals with me again. I think we're looking at 5.10 meters in all.
Insgesamt bei 5,10 Meter.
Too narrow. We need a solution for this, a space.
Okay.
But finding such a large new area outside the regular exhibition space is no easy matter. I'll take a good look at the plan and talk to my colleagues to see what spaces are available without having to drive through an additional portal, because otherwise we will have the same problem again. And then we will take a look at it on site and see if it fits the assembly conditions and find another solution, hopefully. Will it work? Sure.
Das kriegen wir hin.
So Christian Lepp has to find a solution as soon as possible, and thus avoid that the gates are too low and stop the 5-meter-high log handler getting to its exhibition place. Areas that would otherwise be used for parking may be a possibility.
Hello, Christian.
Hey, Christian, that was quick. That would be the area. More than 100 square meters, almost flat.
Quadratmeter, halbwegs eben.
It's a good spot, actually. Problem solved, so now the log handler can come. Towards evening, the heavy-duty truck approaches the A9 near Ingolstadt. Its cargo? A caterpillar train from the company TADANO FAUN, which is to be presented as a special feature at Bauma. We loaded the crane in Bremerhaven. Originally, it came from America by sea. It's an almost 1,200-kilometer drive to Bauma at Munich. That's following the route which has been approved, and so we don't have a direct route, but instead it's 1,200 kilometers. because with a total weight of 120 tons, a width of 3.55 meters, and a total length of 30.50 meters, you also have to plan large detours to avoid bottlenecks. But first a break before driving the last kilometers to bauma. 7:30 a.m. The Liebherr log handler has arrived at its assembly point. Werner Haas's team takes care of it. Just the log handler's cantilever alone, which is used in timber transport, for example, weighs 10 tons. No easy task, even for a car crane which needs 4 slings in order to be able to assemble it onto the stacker. It's the crane's load limit. Now let's deposit the load so we can extend the telescope differently, and then maybe we can lift more.
Dann können wir vielleicht mehr reden.
No sooner said than done. Now we just go up with the log handler under the arm, and then Harry, our crane operator, only needs to take it down. But it's not quite as easy as we thought. The arm hangs slightly askew so the bolts won't snap into place. Press, Annas! As a team, the workers try to move the arm by a few centimeters to install it safely with the log handler. Firstly, the first of 4 bolts is in place, but the misaligned arm complicates the setup work. A small stacker must pull the arm in the air and straighten it. The problem is simply that there is a slight slope, and also the slings have different tolerances and different lengths, and so it was a bit more difficult. Despite the uneven ground, the Liebherr team assembles the log handler in just 4 hours. Now it has to wait until it can be brought to its final position at bauma. Another night is approaching as wide-load truck driver Gerrit Reichau undertakes the final part of his journey. Before that, he and his colleagues in the escort vehicle must talk through the route permit and precise kilometer specifications for the heavyweight again. In this case, we have a permit consisting of 63 A4 pages, and we have to stick to the licensing requirements accordingly. There are still 100 kilometers to the trade fair in Munich. Off we go to bauma.
Rechts ist alles gut und hier
Everything okay?
ist schick.
After a few kilometers, the heavy-duty transporter has to significantly reduce its speed from 85 kilometers just before a bridge because of its considerable weight. In this case, to 5 kilometers an hour. We're obliged to use the lane as prescribed. This also impacts the other traffic. So the escort vehicle has a variable message sign, so we can signal forbidding overtaking for trucks or for cars. After just under 2 hours, 10 bridges and roadworks, they finally leave the A94 in Munich. The bauma site is relatively accessible. It's not too far away from the motorway, so we get less problems there. Just after the motorway exit, police stop the heavy-duty transporter. They check the permit and the drive to the trade fair off the motorway. The last stretch to bauma is now becoming the home straight. Made it at last. Gerrit Reichau delivers the GTC 800 crane safely to the TADANO FAUN stand at bauma. Come on.
Immer weiter.
We'll make a few more preparations for tomorrow, and it will be unloaded tomorrow, and then we will move on slowly into the evening.
Dann werden wir langsam den Feierabend einleiten.
The next morning on the bauma site, the caterpillar crane of TADANO FAUN can finally be assembled. But unloading the heavy-duty transporter requires very precise work with such a heavy tracked vehicle because it can't swing out much sideways. To operate the crane, an expert is needed who comes to bauma especially for the assembly from the USA.
Well, it is very important that I watch the person on the ground that is guiding me. I have to trust that person that they are going to guide me safely and to get the piece in position safely.
For this, it is essential that the crane be already brought into its final position for assembly.
Oftmal müssen wir dann doch noch ein bisschen bewegen.
Often we have to shift a bit anyway. The cranes make it possible to still be movable, in case some path or cable has to be guided. That's why we try to stick to the current plan as closely as possible,
So genau wie möglich zu halten.
so everyone has the same starting point for their activity here at the trade fair.
Tätigkeiten hier auf der Messe, ne?
The Transport and Safety Department at Messe München must also keep an eye on particularly heavy exhibits during the assembly phase. Maria Neuhaus checks things on the open-air area. At the last bauma, we had around 18,000 arrivals of vehicles up to 7.5 tons in the last setup week. And then that makes things relatively complex. More vehicles from the 7.5 tons or more arrive, so usually that's more 40-tonners. We expect about another 3,000 arrivals, and this mixture then makes the whole thing complex, so we have to intervene in the organization. Frank Pastior and his colleague from the Transport and Safety Department, Matthias Bortel, arrive at the bridge works. They have been preparing for 6 months to get the bridge raised over the motorway. Now the next step is to lift the element over the motorway tonight between midnight and 2 a.m. For this we have made special arrangements to close the motorway so we can work here unhindered. The hub was originally supposed to be carried over by 2 cranes from the motorway in the space of 6 hours. That was too long for the authorities. The commuter traffic in the morning would have been impacted. So we only have a 2-hour shutdown, and we decided to do the whole thing from this spot. One single large crane will now put the 40-metre-long bridge element on the pillars from the side. The bridge idea arose from the heavy visitor congestion 3 years ago. It was almost a requirement because we had big problems at the last bauma with the bridge which already exists. It was too narrow and we directed too many people there. Luckily, panic didn't break out, but if something had gone wrong, we would have had a big problem. That's why we need this second bridge.
Deswegen diese zweite Brücke.
An immense effort for Team Messe München.
Man erklärt uns für verrückt.
Everyone thinks we're crazy, and gradually I'm starting to believe them with a project like this. I'll be glad when I'm finally lying down in bed and get round to sending a WhatsApp saying, "Job done." I can't wait for that.
Und da freue ich mich jetzt schon drauf.
Meanwhile, on the open-air area, the caterpillar crane is in place and is extended to the extract position. All that's missing are the counterweights the crane needs to remain stable during its load work. The special feature of this crane from TADANO Mantis is that it can assemble itself completely. No need for a second crane. It just needs the low load, the counterweights, to transport itself. And on the construction site, it can then find its own position for the necessary work. The counterweights need to be positioned accurately. Right, perfect.
We are ready and everything is fine. Crane just needs washed and some paint, and it'll be perfect for the show.
Things can soon get underway, but before the visitors arrive, the footbridge still has to be mounted over the motorway. Punctually, just before midnight, the A94 is closed and the traffic diverted. Now we're gradually approaching the critical stage. Basically, it's now important for everyone that we adhere to the given time frame of these maximum 2 hours when the motorway is closed, and that within this time we manage to carry out all the necessary work. Time is running out for the bridge workers. 4 slings are attached to the bridge element. Slowly, the crane hoists the almost 60 tons. The workers down below also steer the bridge with further slings in the right direction. Yeah, you start to feel a bit like a kid again, don't you? Large machines, technology, cranes, a 40-meter bridge which is floating here up in the air. Yep, that's bauma for you. In order for the bridge to snap firmly into place, the crane operator and the workers at the bridge pillars must communicate precisely via walkie-talkie. So this is our top performance now. We really need to concentrate given the circumstances. It's starting to snow a bit. It's night. The guys have already done a great job. The bridge has snapped into place. Job done. Matthias Bortel does a final check to see that everything meets the regulations. It's really impressive. Usually you only see this on paper, do the planning discussions and of course the prep. But when it works so smoothly for real, in a little more than 30 minutes, that's fascinating. Bauma can begin.
Die Bauma kann beginnen.
Just a few days to go until visitors flock to the world's largest trade fair. And for a week, it's all about construction equipment.